Hello and welcome to this episode of the Ranting Atheist podcast. Today we'll be listening to the deconversion story of a Nigerian Pantheist, and she comes from a Christian background, and the way she lost her belief was through reading. She is someone who is a Gen Xer, and the internet wasn't yet all that, so it was reading books. She loves reading books, and that opened her mind up, which helped her to throw Christianity away. But she then went on to Isese, so which Ifa, is it Isese or Ifa? So as we continue discussing, I begin to ask her questions about Ifa, and one thing I realized is our traditional religions have bad PR, all thanks to the Abrahamics. They've demonized the traditional religions, or even though their claims to are unproven, but the way they've been demonized is not what they actually are, yet their claims are unproven. So I ask questions to clarify and understand things from our perspective. So if you're yet to subscribe, please consider subscribing on Apple, Spotify, Google, and other places podcasts are available. Then check out the show notes below for links that you may find useful. If you want to reach out, you can reach out to me on WhatsApp. So now let's go and listen to the deconversion story of YeyeOlokun. Hello Yeye, and you are welcome to the Ranting Atheist podcast.
Thank you,
How are you
Ren.
doing today?
I'm well, thank you.
Great having you here.
Thank you for having me.
All right now. So our listener would like to know who is speaking on the other end. So can you give us a brief introduction of yourself?
My author name is Yetunde Makinde, but my moniker is YeyeOlokun. That's Yetunde Olokun. It's a combination of my first name and my Orisha. My Orisha is Olokun.
Nice.
Okay, you said location, right? I'm not sure I want to disclose my location,
No problem.
And
so what do you do? Occupation?
I'm a writer. I write.
Newspaper or freelance?
I've just published my first book.
Okay,
It's titled Who Can / Will Save Nigeria? Enter a Brigade of Technocrats. It's basically about what I believe we need to do as a nation to reset Nigeria more or less. We need to reset Nigeria. I'm sure that's something everybody who is a Nigerian would agree with. We need to do something about the state of affairs. So that's what the book is basically about.
But if you talk reset, blood must flow.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
I said if you are talking reset, blood must flow.
No. I don't mean a violent revolution. An intellectual revolution is what I mean. What we need to do, using our mind, using our brain, using our intellect, using our intelligence. It's the only option open to us besides violence. And I don't think anyone would vote for violence if we have a much better. We can do it differently. We don't have to go the violent route. Because at the end of the day, if we choose violence, then nobody wins. It's going to be a lose-lose. We can have a win-win. And the only way to achieve that is to use our mind, our brain, our intellect, our intelligence.
The reason why I have doubts on that is we have too many stupid humans in power who are bloodthirsty.
Yeah, but do we need are Nigerians relying on those in power to change things?
Even when Nigerians are dumb, even many of the majority are stupid.
Yeah, I know. So it like I keep saying to people that when you have a set objective, you don't need a majority buying into it. You just need a minority who are dedicated and committed to it. So we don't need all Nigerians to be on that boat. We just need a few who understand what statecraft is about. We get in that, we have a goal and we run with it. That's what we need essentially. We don't need everybody. That's what I mean. You understand that, right? There's never been a time in the history of humanity when it's been the majority that brings about the much needed or necessary change. It's always a minority that gets the idea, they run with it, and then they actualize.
Yeah. True. Makes sense. Laser focus movement. All right, moving
Exactly.
on now. Yeah. So, would like to know your religious. What was your religious background like? We are still. Give us back when you were younger. What was your religious background? Or rather, before I even say your religious background, what do you identify as when it comes to the whole beliefs and what do you identify as right now?
I'm a pantheist, but
Pantheist.
at least that's what my profile says on on Twitter. I'm an agnostic pantheist, and but of course I much prefer to say Olorisha because that's what it
Olorisha.
is. But of course, if I put Olorisha, if you're not Yoruba, then you don't know what that means. That's why I use pantheist. So but I'm an Olorisha. That means I adhere to the traditions of my ancestors.
So have you always been a pantheist?
No.
Okay, so give us your background.
Okay, well, I can say
religion.
that I wasn't born into a Christian home. I usually like to highlight that I wasn't born into a Christian home because I didn't start to go to church until I was about 11. So that means in my home, nobody went to church until I was really growing. So there was no indoctrination for me at home. My indoctrination was in secondary school. That's where I got indoctrinated into Pentecostalism.
So what was happening at home? What was the vibe? Religious vibe?
It was just normal. My father was pretty liberal, and maybe that's what gives me some sort of maybe that gave me a leeway. I don't know, but my father was liberal, and there wasn't any indoctrination in my home, in the house I grew up in. And even when we started to go to church, my father was just a nominal Christian, went to church because it was socially acceptable to do that. And I didn't grow up in a churchy home. There were no hard rules. There were no, nothing like that. Very much liberal home. But my indoctrination was in school, and it was an in-depth indoctrination because even after I left secondary school, I continued on the template that they had handed to me in school, So
it was a Christian school, right?
No, it wasn't. But then, back when I was in secondary school, I don't know if that still happens these days, but back then it was normal to have scripture union things, and then to have Christian fellowship in school. At least in my school, that happened. Christian fellowship.
Secondary school?
Yeah, secondary school. So back when at least that happened to my school. Maybe maybe it was not a trend then, but that happened to my school because I had a lot of house mistresses and house masters who were scripture union members. So they were the ones who, indoctrinated students into that ideology, that Pentecostalism, Christianity. So my indoctrination didn't happen at home.
Wow. That's
That's a different kind of thing, right?
Yes. Sir.
Yeah. So, but I think the fact that because on Twitter I see how a lot of youngins are so angry, which is justifiable. They're so angry, they're so mad. I see that. They're so mad at Christianity, at organized religion, at the indoctrination they've been subjected to. So, but maybe because I grew up in a liberal home, I don't have that. Because, of course, at some point I realized that, gosh, Christianity is just, it's an ideology that is used basically to control people, to dumb people down.
Yeah.
But I didn't have that anger toward it, maybe because my indoctrination happened, because I already had a good sense of right and wrong before I started to go to church, which is why I tell people that, look, religion has nothing to do with morality. Without religion, people will still have morals, good or bad morals.
Yeah.
Before I got indoctrinated, I already had a sense of good and right. So I didn't, even as a Christian, I still could think and know that, no, you shouldn't tell me this, because because it's something I always knew, even before I came to church. Because for me, I said to people sometimes that, look, I didn't become a Christian out of a need. I don't know if that makes sense.
Makes sense.
You find that a lot of people okay, like if you're a bad person and then they come and convert you, maybe you steal or you do, there's some immoral things you do.
Yeah.
It's easy to convince you that you're bad, so you need Jesus. But where a person already has good morals and you come preaching at them, even if I go along with you, it's not because I'm bad. It's because somehow you were just able to play on my innocence at that time, at that period, because I was young. Yeah, exactly. So let me keep quiet so that you can ask the next question before we just...
No, I'm enjoying it. But
okay,
anyways, so now you're a pantheist. How did you take us on that journey from being a Christian? How, from that your indoctrination point till you became a pantheist?
Okay, all right. Like I said, my indoctrination happened in secondary school. And I ran with that template. Even after post-secondary school, I continued to be a Christian. But there is a quality about me. I've always read books. By the time I was leaving primary school, I'd read all the pace setters there were. By the time I got into secondary school, I was reading Ugly Chase, I was reading Robert Ludlum, I was reading novels. I'd read Roots by the time I was in Form 1. So I've always been a book fiend. I've always read books. But by the time I was leaving secondary school, remember, I'm well indoctrinated in the way of organized religion now, something that didn't happen to me at home. So by this time, I've convinced myself I shouldn't read novels. I'm supposed to read religious books. So for the next phase of my life, post-secondary school, I was reading religious books, and I read a lot of them, which is why today Christians can't tell me anything. There isn't any form of debate or argument they will put forth that I can't counter easily. Because the unfortunate thing about being a Christian is you're not allowed to read other things, so you really don't know much. You can't even defend that which you profess.
Yes. Read your Bible, study your Bible.
But even when I was reading, so for a phase of my life, I was reading only religious literatures, which today is good because it equipped me with the ability to be able to defend whatever it is that I say today.
Yeah.
And then at some point, you get older and you get wiser and you become more self-aware. And then I started to notice that, look, something seems to be amiss in my personal life. I didn't know what it was, but something was amiss. I could sense that. But I was still a Christian. I still went to church, still was fasting, was doing all the stuff that is expected of a religious person. But because of that natural yearning that I've always had for reading, I started to go back to reading things other than religious literature.
Okay.
So I started to pick up metaphysical materials, things you're not supposed to read as a Christian. I always have loved astrology. So I started to read up on astrology again, started to read up on metaphysics, started to study esotericism, occultism. Occultism, people would think it's something demonic, but it simply means
occult, devil.
Yeah, exactly. It simply means things that are hidden, So I started to pick up a lot of literature on this subject, and I started to study and read. And I started to realize that Christianity is actually a political tool that is used by those who have political power to control the majority, to control the rest of humanity. That's essentially why religion was invented, to control the majority. So I started to realize this, and my personal development and evolution progressed to the point where I now decided that, okay, to be able to grow any further, I needed to pull myself away from that religious fold. I needed to say to myself, no more of this. And that's exactly what happened. Stopped going to church, and basically just stayed home on Sunday, did whatever I wanted to do. I had to free my mind. This thing takes a while. It's not something that happens overnight or happens in one day. It's usually gradual. At least it was for me. It was gradual. It took more than a decade for me to arrive at the point where I knew that, okay, Yetunde, at this point, you can actually dissociate yourself from religion without regret. So I did that at about maybe around 2009. Stopped going to church completely.
Oh, how old was I then? Still.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I was like, I'm thinking, where was I in 2009? I was still in university.
Okay, so that's why I said I'm older than millennials.
Yeah.
So it took about a decade for me to reach the point where I said, no more. Longer than a decade, actually, no more. And in 2009, I stopped going to church, and I'll just, do my thing. Sunday, no church. By this time, I'm already studying. I'm now looking at ATR, what we call ATR, African Traditional, ATR, I said African Traditional Religion. Or religions. Okay. I'm looking at it, and it's fascinating, It makes a lot of sense. I agree with everything I've read so far. And then one day, after many years, I just decided that, okay, it's about time for you to do the things that the things that ought to have been done for you when you were much younger. Because the fact is, every soul that incarnates on earth, which is still things that happen, they still happen, but they happen without the proper ceremony. It's just like when a child is born. The naming ceremony is a rite of passage. It's a ritual. So for every age that we reach, there are a specific age when specific things ought to be done for every child. And then when you reach adulthood too, there are things that should happen. So I basically just decided that, okay, go and get those things done because it's necessary for you to do them now. So that's what I did. So taking that step, I did the necessary ceremonies, the necessary rites, and that's how I became an Olorisha. And it's been a pleasant journey thus far.
That's quite a story. Now, based on what you said, I had some questions were coming up in my mind.
Okay.
Now, you said you freed up your mind from the hold Christianity had on you. What tools was it? Was it only books just books you read, or what else did you do to kind of free yourself from that hold that Christianity usually
Okay.
has?
Like I said, I'm an avid reader. I read extensively. Like I say to
Okay.
people sometimes, if every book or every word of a book that I've read were bricks, and you could pile them one atop of the other, I did have multiple stories of a structure by now.
Come on, now hot me, I go build.
I read extensively. So, I did say that I delved into subjects that are considered taboo within
Okay.
Christendom.
Yeah.
I was doing metaphysics, theosophy, Hinduism, Buddhism, reading books on them, not practicing them. You get.
Okay. Yeah.
Everything I laid my hands on, I read. Everything outside Christianity, I was studying. And astrology, tarot, Mayan, Aztec traditions, theosophy, these are things that helped my growth, And growth, every kind of growth, whether physical, spiritual, it takes a while. So it's not something that one can rush. Well, at least for me, maybe because I'm a Virgo and earth signs are slow moving energies. So development for me was gradual and it took me a while. So, like you've asked, it was essentially books. Books have been my teacher. There's something they say within metaphysical circles. They say that when a student is ready, the teacher will show up. And that's a fact. It's just that for me, my teachers were books. The kind of books that others won't read. The people don't have the patience to read. I've read them. I still read them. So my teachers have been books written in 1800s. Books written in 1800s. I sit and I read them. I study them. But the good thing is when I read them, I'm able to connect with them at an astral level. They make sense to me instantly. The minute I read them, I connect with them. So books have been my teachers. Books have taught me virtually everything that I know, which is why I ended up writing a book.
Yeah. It had to happen. It really had to happen. Yeah. So now I'm still on this Christianity matter now. There's one thing I noticed with a lot of former Christians. Christianity uses this carrot and the stick principle. The carrot is heaven, the stick is hell. It's easy to walk away from the carrot. How did you walk away from the stick called hell?
Hell doesn't exist.
I know that we both agree on that. But
how did I walk away from it?
Yeah, as a Christian, I believe you believed in hellfire. Did you?
Oh, did I believe? I'm trying to watch.
Did you buy the hell literal fire, brimstone burning forever and ever when you were a Christian?
I must say this. Even as a Christian, I was a thinking Christian. I don't know if that sounds funny, but I was a thinking Christian. Funny. I was thinking. I wasn't soaking up things I was told. Okay, like for example, I used to have a particular question in my head even before I went. Those were part of the things that pushed me to go and start to dig and try to get answers for myself. If you remember the story of Jonah, it says, that story says that those who were on the ship with Jonah had to cast lot to determine, they knew something was troubling the vessel. They didn't know what until they cast lot. And then they then knew that it was Jonah that was troubling the waters that was troubling the ship, and they decided to throw him overboard.
Yeah.
As a young person reading that, I always wondered, what do they mean to cast lot? That was a question. Questions like that were always constantly at the back of my mind. There is also this part of the Old Testament that talks about Lord, what's this thing? It sounds like fruit, but it's actually divinatory stone. Something and the thummim. I don't know if you remember it.
No.
It's what the Levites used to cast divination. Back then when I read it,
Manna.
I didn't know what it meant. Sorry?
Is it manna?
It's called something and the thummim. Roman and the thummim. I don't remember. Yeah, it's there in the Old Testament. It's the stones that the Levites used to cast divination. But at the time, I didn't know what it was. It sounded like a fruit, so I always assumed it was a fruit until I started to dig and found out what it was. So like I'm trying to state, I always have had a question in mind. I've always had that mind that queries and question, even though, like for example, there was a time I went and discussed with a pastor to ask him certain questions. And you know the way it is in Christendom, once they don't have answers to your questions, they tell you you're a candidate for deliverance. Isn't that?
Yes.
So that's what this person said to me. He said, "Sister, you shouldn't be asking these questions. In fact, I recommend you for deliverance." And in my mind, I'm thinking, for asking questions? How can that be bad? I just need answers. So I always have had a querying mind. Now, I didn't believe in evangelism. I never participated in it because it just, I mean, what do you want to go and say to people?
It felt intrusive.
Exactly. So did I believe in hell and heaven and hell? I don't know. It was not something that was ingrained in me to the point that I imagined that people would burn in hell. No.
Lucky you. Lucky
I
you.
think it's because my indoctrination didn't start from home.
Yeah.
I think that's that gave me a leeway, that helped, because it wasn't hammered into my head at home. It was only in school. And it's the things you grew up. I mean, like I said, I was already 11 before I started to go to church.
Yeah, so your mind
I already had a sense of right and wrong.
Yeah. That's good. That's good, because hellfire is basically child abuse.
Indoctrinating children into that belief, it's harmful. I agree totally.
It's child abuse. So now you are a pantheist, and who in your family did you tell first, or was there need to tell them, or was there anything dramatic?
There was no need to, because I was already a full-grown adult who could do things and make my own decisions without recourse to anyone.
Okay. Yeah. Because that's always the issue with this. When you drop Christianity, who do you tell? Like me now, only my brothers know. My parents are still in the dark because they have leverage, and I'm not ready for them to die of heart attack. Because what you kill them is the picture of me burning in fire and brimstone. That is what we kill them before their time. So I'm not ready for that.
It's best to keep it away from them. There's no point shoving it down their throat. Nobody needs that.
Yeah, but eventually, I don't know, with the content I'm doing, it might spill out, because this is my voice now. There's no way they will not hear this by mistake and not know it's their son. So till that day, we'll prepare for that. All right.
Yeah.
So now, as an atheist now, I'm a blank slate. I've always seen Orisha as juju jazz. So can you please educate objectively? Let's learn objectively. What is Orisha about?
Okay. Before I even said that, I already thought to myself that I was going to say this to you. Personally, I find that I'm able to have a decent conversation with an atheist, but not with a theist. Okay?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because it's about rubbing minds, it's about exchanging ideas, it's about debating objectively. It's not about one wanting to foist your own ideas on other people, which is what theism is about, lauding your own ideals on other people. And that's actually an immoral thing to do. Earth is a free will zone. No one should have the right or the power to impose their will on other people. That's witchcraft. The minute you want people to live their lives in accordance to your own standard, that's just immoral. I say to people, as long as a person is not a murderer and is not deceitful and is not stealing from you, let them be. Now, I see the way even Olorisha, like now, I see how Olorisha and atheists sometimes go at one another on Twitter. I usually just stay away. But I know that if I were to, sometimes I step in, not when atheists and Olorisha are having a go at it, but when Olorisha are kind of like going head to head with religious people. Sometimes I've actually said to Olorishas before that, you leave these religious people alone, because sometimes, even religious people bash head because
they are never in agreement now.
Denominational differences, sometimes they're knackered. And then you find Olorishas wanting to go in to say, oh, God is this or God is that. And I'm like, stay away. It's not your battle. Because, and then, they realize, okay, yeah, Olokun is actually correct. It's none of your business. Now, who are the Orishas and who are the Orishas, right?
Yeah.
That's a question you've asked me.
Yeah.
I can't claim to know more than I do. So I would only share a bit of my understanding of what it is. But I must say this first. What Nollywood portrays as Isese is totally at odds with what the tradition is. Nothing Nollywood says is true. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, we don't even have to talk. The Oshas are, I would say, the Orishas are entities that are, let me see, or maybe I should just define what Ifa is.
Okay.
Instead of defining what the Orishas are, because I can't speak Yoruba because you have listeners who are not Yoruba who don't speak the language.
Yeah.
Orisha. I want you Orisha. Jo is one explanation. There are many
Orisha. Head Sha. Abi.
Yes, that's what Olorishas would normally, that's how they would define it. But I have a different way of understanding it. I believe the Orishas are live streams. The Orishas are a life force. I don't know if that makes sense or if that's what I'm supposed to say.
Okay.
They're forces of nature. Ogun, Shango, Oya, Oba, Olokun. Ogun, they will say, is the god of iron. Shango is the god of lightning and thunder. These are forces of, what am I supposed to say now? But you know what I'm trying to say, right?
Are they deities or something like that? Or is it just forces?
I don't even want to use that word. They are forces of nature.
Okay.
That's the way I want to describe them. I don't want to use the word deity.
Okay.
Because there is no, like I say to people, there is no English equivalent for Orisha. They're not deities. because if I didn't speak English, I don't know what deities are, right? But I know what orishas are.
Okay,
They're forces of nature. Because Shango is lightning, Ogun is iron, Olokun is the ocean, Oshun, river, Oya, Oba, wind. So these are just forces of nature. But you now find that these forces of nature are now personified in the Odus of Ifa. To tell a story, like Bible stories, for example. The way stories are written in the Bible is the same way stories are told in Ifa. So each of these forces, each of the force of nature, Ogun, Shango, they weave stories around them, and the essence of doing this is to teach wisdom, to preserve eternal truth, eternal knowledge, even though they are stories, but hidden in the stories are wisdom and truth that are eternal. So orishas are not God.
Okay.
They are not God.
But now these stories, you say they have truths hidden in them, like the stories on the surface, on the surface. Is it a true story, or is more like fables, or
they're mythical stories, metaphorical stories, allegorical, figurative.
Okay.
They're like every Odu is a story, poems, stories, tales.
That word you said, Odu. I don't know, is it like they use it in Yoruba as Odu, like they give me Zobo? Is it the same word, or is it a different pronunciation? Or I don't know.
It's the same one. I think we've just basically...
They bastardize the word.
Yeah, well, so you can say that. But I think it's more that, like the same way, there's this word. When you say... What's that other word people use for ashewo? That means when you have money in your hand, in Yoruba word. Anyway, don't let's go there so that we don't spread out too much.
Okay.
Yeah, so Odu means, like give me Odu, give me Expo. When I was in secondary school, Odu meant give me Expo.
Okay.
It's almost the same way, because the Odufa are like the secrets of Ifa, the occult knowledge of Ifa.
Okay.
The Odus, the Odu, secrets. Odu, Ojeto wane, Odube.
Okay.
You get the secrets.
It's a new information. Nollywood has just been pushing propaganda since.
Yes, and they're virtually ignorant of the tradition, so they just regurgitate rubbish to sell their product.
Yeah, it sells. I want salesman. There must be actor and boss. That's the way film is. The hero must have a villain to fight. Yeah. So now you described the spiritual forces: Olokun, the ocean, Shango, lightning. Now these forces. Let me see now. How do I ask this now? Are there things do they interact with? You say they are part of nature, and they've been. You said they've been personified in a way with the names they've been given
in the stories.
In the stories. Now, in reality, do they interact with the real world in the sense that they can manipulate or be manipulated to achieve certain goals? Or do you get what I'm trying to ask? Is my question clear?
I thought you were going to ask, I thought you were just going to say, are these entities able to interact with the human world?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe I didn't ask it well. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, they are, because the question you asked me is based off what Nollywood portrays, which we don't want to go into. But if you're asking if these forces interact with humankind, yes, they do. They do.
Okay, so why I'm asking this is to help dispel the Nollywood's perspective, because according to Nollywood, Shango needs sacrifices. Shango needs to be what they call different. You know what they do is sacrifice, all those things. Is that for real, or that is exaggeration, or that's a total lie?
How do you mean? Like, do they need to perform rituals?
Yes, rituals, sacrifices, and all that.
Yes. You need to do them, but it doesn't have to be. But you're not doing them they're not for making money. I don't know.
I know. Blood rituals,
or getting power. Yeah.
They are not for getting power. So what is the end goal?
But that also can happen.
Okay. But what is the normal process? There's usually no end goal in mind. It's just to reverence them, or I don't know.
To make connection, to connect with.
Okay. Now, connecting with them, what benefit does it give you as a person that is connected to them? There must be a benefit now. People are chasing Jesus so Jesus is their guy, always their escape route. People are worshiping Allah to may Allah guide us. So what are you benefiting with the connection? What is the connection giving you?
Okay, now because you're an atheist, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of atheist you are, because you're an atheist.
I'm
because
there are people de facto atheist. I'm not agnostic.
I was just going to say there are people who are agnostic. Okay, so if you were agnostic, then maybe my explanation would make sense. But since you're an atheist, means it's just a physical world. There is nothing beyond the physical world.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. So in that case, there is no point me trying to explain what the benefit may be.
You can try, because the reason why I ask is not just for me. An agnostic can be listening to this.
Okay.
So,
now, as an Olorisha, I know that there is a world beyond the physical world.
Okay.
When I say that, I don't mean that there is a physical heaven. No. I'm saying that there are realms that are invisible to the naked eyes. There are worlds that the naked eyes do not see. So in order for those of us on earth to be able to make connection to those higher realms, there are certain ceremonies that can be performed so that you have like direct access to your Ori, to your Orisha, and to other planetary beings. It's like a child is born.
Yeah.
And there is no guidance. There is no parent, nobody to guide the child. Nothing. The child is just born. That child won't develop now. That child will not be able to live out its full potential.
Yeah.
Which is something that is actually going on in the world that we live in today, because we're so disconnected from who we are as individuals, as a collective, as a world. We've dissociated ourselves from those entities that exist behind the veil. The world is in a bad place. We live in a broken world. Every known system, be it financial, be it medical, be it education, as it is right now in the world, is broken. And it's essentially because we've disconnected ourselves from the entities. I don't know, people within the field of material science, people talk about the Big Bang, right?
Yeah.
There is an Odofa that actually describes basically what the Big Bang is. I don't know that Odu, but I know it somewhere. I've read it before. Okay, but
Yeah.
if you read it with an open mind, you will see you would see how it is basically describing what science calls the Big Bang. So that means quantum physicists tell us that there are things that happen that they observe that defies all explanation.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are things that a true owl can actually explain. You get, they can explain some of these things. I'm not an owl, but sometimes I'm not a scientist. But sometimes when I sit with babalawos who recite Ifa, because some of them are not, they're not educated in the field of science, physical sciences. They don't even know what they're saying. But because I'm educated, I get what they're saying, like, oh, I've read this thing in some scientific book before. I've read this thing somewhere before. So there is truth in Ifa, like I said, but it's just unfortunate that we haven't been able to harness the wisdom of Ifa to develop ourselves as individuals and then develop our nation, develop our country, develop our group, and just basically allow the West exploit us. You'll know that Europeans invaded African countries, not just African countries, went around the world invading other people's lands and then telling them that everything that is cultural to them and indigenous to them is demonic.
Yeah.
And then foisted on them their own religious traditions, Christianity and Islam. Okay, let's just stick to Christianity. And foisted that on us. Now today, Europeans are no longer religious. We are the ones who have now put it on our head. Meanwhile, the very indigenous traditions that were once taught, that we were taught and told and conditioned to believe are demonic, is making a comeback gradually into the world. And you can actually see this in the field of medicine. Every indigenous remedy, that I remember when I was growing up, doctors would tell you that. I know I've gone off where we started, but let me just conclude this and then we can go back. Where doctors will tell you that, in Yoruba, there's something they call awogbar, that you can have one remedy cure so many ailments. And those who have been trained in medical schools will tell you that is not possible. But we're coming back to that point now, aren't we? Where we know that if you cut moringa leaves and you put turmeric, you drink them sorry?
Agbo that I used to drink now.
Yeah, agbo. We're coming back there now. Even the West is recognizing that agbo has value. So all of these things, Ifa has pharmacology. It has pharmacology. It has astronomy. It has everything that man needs to thrive on earth. So if we're not looking into Ifa and harnessing it for the wisdom and the truth it comprises, how can we grow or develop as a people? It's hard. So there is a world that exists beyond the physical world. It doesn't even matter whether a person believes it or not, but it does exist.
But it kind of matters because Christians too make this same statement, the same claim.
No, you need to understand that Christianity is a plagiarized religion. There's nothing genuine about Christianity. Christianity is plagiarized. Let me take it from this beginning. Okay. Christianity is plagiarized off the back of Judaism.
Yeah.
Judaism itself is plagiarized off the back of much older traditions, like the Persian traditions, that's that of the Babylonians and Sumerians. And Islam is plagiarized off the back of Christianity.
Judaism too, yeah.
There's nothing the only thing original to Christianity are the dark things they preach, like hellfire, and how if you don't believe in Jesus, you won't make heaven. And like I always say to people, I definitely do not want to go to the heaven of the Christian or the Muslim, because it's going to be filled with vile people.
Yeah.
Remember what they preach. It doesn't matter what you do on earth. All you have to do is profess the name of Jesus. And then for Muslims, I don't know what the condition is. Maybe you don't even have to do anything. Just believe in Allah. So whether you're a murderer, a rapist, it doesn't matter. Just call the name of Jesus and you'll make heaven. I don't want to be in that heaven because it will be filled with vile, immoral people. Nothing Christianity, and you must know that the Christian Bible is not original to Europe, because it's Europeans who brought Christianity to us. They invented it and brought it to us, because Jews are not Europeans, right?
Yeah.
So it's Europeans who went and, I don't know if I can use the word stole other people's scriptures, compiled it into Bible. You know, the stories of the Bible is a compilation of scriptures from diverse places, from Babylon, from Sumer, compiled in a way that suits the ideology of first century Christians and the Roman Empire. What do they call the emperor at the time?
Constantine.
Constantine, to suit the narrative of that time. It was all about control. So for me, Christianity is not original. So I actually sympathize with those who believe so fervently in it and would actually spew hate, condemn people based on falsehood. And it's just a pity that Africans are so steep and so deep in this falsehood that it affects us politically, it affects us economically.
I get it. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
I just wanted to pause so that you could have
a
say, so that you could continue.
Okay. Why I asked that question then now? Because of how do I put this now? Yes, Christianity has done all those their manipulations, and the reason why they are successful is they had the power of the written word. Ifa Orisha just had stories. That was why the propaganda worked. Why didn't Ifa step up?
How do you mean step up?
Ifa could have compiled their own documents or something to educate the young ones.
Oh.
You know, the stories. You know that telephone game. What they call the stories are not effective. Passing on from one mind to another, there will always be division. And so even the written word was even manipulated. So, do you understand?
Let me correct you.
All right.
See, the interesting thing about Ifa, people always say this, the telephone analogy. As far as Ifa goes, that analogy is not applicable.
How did you confirm that?
Yes, because you have Babalawo before technology came and instantaneous communication happens.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has access to it. Before this time, Awonifa are scattered in different places in southwest Nigeria.
Yeah.
They've never traveled to meet one another. Now, even till today, but before now, because now we can say, but there's technology for them to communicate with one another back and forth.
Yeah.
Before the advent of this type of technology, you will pick up you'll pick 1,000 Babalawo from distinct parts of southwest Nigeria. And you ask them to recite maybe Oyakumeji. That is one of the Udus of Ifa.
Okay.
No, not incantation, Udu or Esefa. And they would recite exactly the same thing. Nothing would miss. So that's why I say that analogy about the telephone is not applicable when it comes to Ifa.
Okay.
By some magical vibes,
Magical
Ifa
satellites.
it has just been preserved. It's amazing. Until you get into the tradition, you don't know how jealously it's been protected and shielded, considering the depth of attack and how badly Europe demonized it. You would have thought it would have been extinguished by now, but miraculously, it survived.
Okay.
If I'm Bayekon or Berioma.
Okay. All right. Another question that's coming up on my mind is, Orisha, Ifa, can they defend one from physical harm? Can you defend yourself? This segues into that question I was asking before we started recording. Can they defend you from an attack? Like, okay, now, armies back in the day, armies or local armies fighting each other. How did Ifa do that? Or Ifa is not involved in the squabbles of mortal men?
But you're making this sound as if Ifa is a being.
So correct me in the way I should.
Ifa is a system.
Okay. Okay, so the system of operation, can it work towards defense of a community?
Okay, so because like what you then asked, how then were the invaders able to cut our ancestors away into slavery?
Yeah.
If they had Ifa, why couldn't Ifa protect them?
Yes.
I was hoping you were not going to ask me this question.
It has said good. When you say it has been protected, the remote, the magical way of the Ifa community. So I saw it an opportunity to choke in this question.
Ask that question. I wish you hadn't asked me that question, because now you're going to make me say things that are going to make me sound like I'm cuckoo, like I'm crazy. See,
it's all perspective now.
Yeah. What is life is a game.
Yeah.
I don't know if you also agree with that.
So again,
life is a game.
In our own heads, we are the avatar. So
yeah, life is a game. And everything that is going on here, that is going on in the here and now, is all a game. And because it's a game, you've just got to play. You don't have the choice. Once you incarnate on earth, you've been sent here you've brought yourself here to play in the game of life, and you just must engage in the game and play it until your time is up. So if Europe came and invaded indigenous, it wasn't just in Africa. They went around the world.
Yeah.
See what they did to Native Americans, extinguished them and took over their lands.
Terrible.
It's all in the game. It's the game. That's the way I see it. So if they succeeded in enslaving our ancestors, it's part of the game.
Damn. That's an unfair game.
They had the upper hand, and it's in the game. It looks to me like things are shifting now. Though I don't think a lot of people recognize that, but things are shifting. And I'm not saying that Africa is going to have the upper hand, because the game of life is originally a game of balance, where we have an equilibrium. When we have an equilibrium, there is harmony, there is peace. Right now, we don't have an equilibrium. What we have is distortion, is confusion, is exploitation, is patriarchy at its worst. Before the energies of patriarchy was injected into the world, Earth was essentially a balanced world where masculine and feminine energies coexisted harmoniously and peacefully. But that doesn't happen. We also see on Twitter how feminists attack patriarchy and men attack women, all sorts of madness going on. There's nothing normal about that. Men and women are complementary part of a whole. There is no reason why we should be attacking one another. We couldn't live one without the other. There can't be a world without women. Neither can there be a world without men. So we're supposed to work together, live together in harmony. So for me, Europe has dealt the world a terrible blow. You can see what's going on even in Europe now. So what needs to happen in the world right now is for the West, the East, both the West and the East, the global South and the global North, to work together, to come together and work together so that there can be harmony, there can be peace, so that man can continue, so that collectively we can carry on with the evolutionary journey for which we're here. Because right now we're stagnant, nothing is moving. And that was not the idea for the game. We were supposed to evolve to godhood. I'm borrowing that word, godhood. So, but right now that isn't happening because people are distracted. Many people are sick, depression, sadness, lack, no money, no food, impoverishment in Africa. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to grow, we're supposed to evolve to attain godhood. So I don't know if that answers your question. So my answer to your question is that life is a game. So you win some, you lose some. Africa lost back then, or indigenous cultures lost back then 400-500 years ago, and Europe won. Now even Europe is losing. So that means everybody now has a level playing field so that we can then, set the cards out again, place if it was Ayo, we were playing Awomo Ayo, we reshuffle and put them back in where they should be and start all over. I don't know if I make sense.
It makes sense. But the issue is reshuffling. These guys they are still way ahead of us. So we are lagging behind seriously. Serious cheat mode.
Yeah, but the reason we're lagging behind is because we've been conditioned to hate ourselves. You can't hate yourself and grow. I still said to somebody just yesterday, what we're doing in Africa, essentially in Africa, in as much as other cultures around the world were also brutalized and invaded by Europe, they are conditioning. Africa got the worst end of the stick because we were brutalized, we were conditioned, and then they gave us a false religion, which has so much damaged our thinking. It has damaged our identity. We have no self-esteem. Self-esteem is very low. We think low of ourselves. We don't think we can do anything. I was talking to somebody yesterday, or day before yesterday, and I said something, and this is his response to me. He said that basically what you also said, that we're lagging behind. Yes, we're lagging behind. I admit that. He said to me that I can't be saying, okay, because I've said to you, but you're an atheist, which is what I said at one point. It's easier for me to converse with atheists than to converse with theists.
Yeah.
Because in as much as we're all Africans, we're all Nigerians, we're not able to understand ourselves because of this religion still, Islam and Christianity. They both damaged the average Nigerian to the extent that people don't think correctly. I'm saying that we're practicing a false religion, that it's the religion of Europe. And you're saying to me that that the clothes that I'm wearing is out of Europe. Do you know what that means? Do you know the implication of that?
Without Europe, we'll be naked.
It means that without Europe, we'll be naked.
We don't have sense to make our clothes.
Yes, that we're not. But didn't we wear clothes before Europeans came? Do you see the extent of damage that I'm trying to establish?
Yeah.
People don't think correctly anymore. That's how badly we've been damaged. We're damaged product. But the good thing is, to get out of the rut, to get out of the mess, we don't need a majority. We only need a minority who have their head screwed onto their neck, who think, who are intelligent, and who have the capacity to serve, who are willing to serve and have what it takes to be leaders, take over our political stratosphere and do things differently. They don't have to be in the majority. That's one thing that gives me a level of confidence that there's still hope for us. Because if we require a majority, then it would never happen.
That one thoughtful.
What is tough?
No, as the way you said now, I'm processing it.
Yeah.
I'm processing.
So I've answered your question actually, that life is a game. So we got gamed, and that's why that happened.
So we need to prepare the next generation to up their skills.
Yes, and their thinking. It's the thinking, essentially. It's the mind. A lot of Nigerians have closed minds, and a lot of Nigerians don't read enough.
That is true.
Until I released my book on the 19th of July. I've sold a few copies. It's an ebook. I've sold a few copies. But the interesting thing is, those who know, my friends who have bought, I go to them wanting to discuss some of the content with them. And I'm like, oh, Lagbaja, have you read? Because they've said to me they've purchased. Have you read? Have you started reading? And the response is, Yetunde, I have no intention of reading. And I'm thinking, who buys a book without the intention of reading it? But more than one person has said that to me. I used to think the saying that if you want to hide anything from a black man, put it in a book. I used to think it was a myth. Now I know it's true. Now I know it's actually true. I didn't think anyone could purchase a book without the intention of reading it. So I don't know. Nigerians need to learn to read more. Not Twitter and Facebook, but real books, proper books. Because it's only in knowledge you can grow. You can't grow past what you know. It's what you know that informs the degree or the extent of your growth. It's what you know that determines your growth. So Nigerians need to cultivate the habit of reading. I've contacted a few book clubs, to pitch my book to them. And all of them tell me that they only read fictional stories. And I'm thinking, really?
People want to escape.
Personally, I don't... Sorry?
People are looking for escape.
Well, yeah, I'll come to that. Personally, I don't remember the last time I read a fictive book. I don't remember. Maybe because I started my life reading books. Like I said, by the time I was through primary school, I was already done reading all pace setters. And I think there were about either 45 or 55 of them at that time. So life is progressive, As you get older, even the Bible says it, Paul said it, right? That the things he did as a child, that when he was a child, he took milk. Now that he's an adult, he eats meat, something along that line, right? So as one grows, there are things you need to shed. You can't continue to read fictional stories all of your life. You can't continue to seek escape from reality all the time. It's good to do that, but it shouldn't be what dominates your free time. You should invest your free time in things in literatures that actually add value, that can expand your mind. If you're not reading, how do you expand your mind?
Very true.
Your consciousness is supposed to stretch as you grow. And the way to stretch it is by reading classics, real books, books on philosophy, books on politics, books on economics. The only reason why politicians have been able, corruptible men have been able to dominate our politics is because Nigerians are not so educated. We've gone to school, but we're not so educated. Saying the four walls of a university does not confer critical thinking.
Yeah.
A lot of Nigerians don't think critically, though they're educated. They have the certificate, they have the good job, they drive the nice ride, but they're not able to form their own opinions. They rely on other people. They rely on the West. They rely on they rely on clergy. Their mullahs and their pastors. It is what pastors tell them that they follow. So you can't grow if all of your life you're relying on other people's opinion. There's no growth. There's no growth. You're dead. You just don't know it. You're on autopilot. You need to read books, digest what you read. The Bible even said it, right? It says that it is only the Christians of Berea that are noble, because whatever it is they are taught, they still go back to verify, to check, and affirm that it is so, that it is true. Nigerians don't do that. It's the reason why our country is topsy-turvy. And then we think the way to correct it, the way to change it is by becoming violent or by protestation. Protests don't work anywhere in the world anymore. So revolution now, going on the street, carrying placards is lame. It's not useful any longer. The only thing that can work in the 21st century is intellect and intelligence. That's head and heart. We need to learn to fuse the two together to grow, to wrench our country out of the hands of those who have held us ransom for so long.
You have finished work. I'm short of words. There's no denying. I'm
happy you agree. I'm happy we're in agreement.
There's no denial. Because me, I won't lie, I've lost hope.
I know. A lot of people have.
I've lost hope. We are moving on. We're moving on, inshallah, and vibes.
Are you an ex-Muslim?
No. I'm excused, but okay. There's a common phrase that inshallah and vibes, like it is what it is.
We can be better. I just sincerely Nigerians don't even realize how I think I did a tweet some few days ago that some people think we've tried everything, that there is no hope. But no, we haven't tried the most effective tool in the toolkit, which is intellect and intelligence. We haven't tried those. The only time those qualities have been tried in this country and it worked was pre-independence time, during the days of Awo. Awo and his cohort used pure intellect and intelligence to push the British out of Nigeria without lifting a weapon. They managed to put, through debate, they managed, the British left Nigeria already. They didn't think they would leave when they did. But that generation of politicians, real Oshelu, those were Oshelu. Not what we have today, who are Ojelu. Those were real politicians. They stuck to their gun and they achieved their goal. In spite of the differences between the different ethnicities, it hurts me when I hear people insult the memories of our national heroes. They did the best they could at that time. We should be grateful to them. Like I noted in my book, we should be grateful to them. Imagine if we were not liberated then. and Nigeria continued under the rule of Britain. Do you think this quality of politicians we have today would have been able to achieve what the pre-independence politicians achieved? It would never have happened. We will have, like what happened in South Africa.
Who
only became independent in the 1990s. We probably would still be enslaved to Britain by now if we didn't have quality politicians at those times who managed the affairs of Nigeria. So we need politicians like that. That's the quality of politicians we need today to salvage this country before it gets too late.
Well said. So it's really been a fun conversation. We've talked about religion and Nigeria, which are things that have been at the front burner of my mind for the past few years. Nigeria, we love Nigeria, but we are just losing our patriotism per second, the way things are. And we don't know. We don't know where we are heading. So I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for coming. And
it's been my pleasure.
It's been a pleasure as well. So hopefully we'll do more.
Yeah.
All right now.
Okay then.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Please subscribe up Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, and other places podcasts are available. Check out the show notes for links you might find useful. WhatsApp as well. We'd love to hear from you. Have a great week, and I will catch you on the next one.